Today I will show you several ways to knit buttonholes. Let's start with the easiest one for full needle rip. On the front bed at the place where the buttonhole would be, transfer one stitch to the left and one stitch to the right as shown in the video. Then on the back bed transfer the opposite two stitches, the left one to the left and the right one to the right. Then you can continue knitting. This is the simplest buttonhole you can do. The second option is for making a buttonhole and knitting a 1x1 rip. Take one stitch on the front bed and transfer this stitch to the closest needle in working position to the left on the back bed. Then take the stitch that is to the right of the empty needle and transfer it to the closest working needle to the right on the front bed. Make sure the empty needles are in working position. Now you can continue knitting. And this is the final result. This buttonhole is suitable for smaller buttons than the previous one. Now I will show you how to make a buttonhole if you are knitting in a 2x2 rip. Take the left stitch from a group of 2 on the back bed and transfer it to the rightmost stitch in a group of 2 needles on the front bed. Now take the right stitch on the back bed and transfer it to the right needle on the front bed. Leave the empty needles on the back bed in working position and knit one row. Slightly raise one of the needles on the back bed, twist the yarn with the double-eye bodkin tool and put it back in the hook of the needle. Now you can continue knitting. This is the final result. The next buttonhole is the one from page 62 in the Passap manual. First, rotate the rocking handle to its upper position. Now use the double-eye bodkin tool and transfer 4 stitches to the opposite needles on the back bed. Again use the double-eye bodkin tool and knit off these 4 stitches as shown in the video. Each one of these 4 needles must have only one stitch in its hook. Now take the second stitch from left to right, transfer it to the needle on the left and knit off the stitch so there is only one stitch in the hook of that needle. Move this stitch one needle to the right. Take the stitch from the third needle, transfer it to the needle on the left and knit off the stitch the same way. Now move the stitch one needle to the right. Take the fourth stitch, transfer it to the left and knit it off in the same way. Now take this stitch and transfer it to the first needle with the stitch in its hook on the front bed, but don't knit it off. There must be 2 stitches in the hook of this needle. Leave the empty needles in working position. Now return the rocking handle to its lowest position and knit one row. Use the double-eye bodkin tool and twist the yarn on all 4 needles on the back bed. Raise the needle until the yarn gets on the tool, then twist the tool and rehang the yarn in the hook of the needle. This way the needles will continue to knit properly on the next row. Now do the same with the 4 needles on the front bed. The direction in which you are twisting the yarn doesn't matter. The thing is to twist the yarn of all needles as shown in the video. Please don't forget to support me by liking the video. Also, you can tell me if you know a different technique for knitting buttonholes. Now you can continue knitting. This is the final result. I like this buttonhole very much. And now I will show you how to knit a buttonhole band and my favorite buttonhole. First, make sure the racking handle is in its lowest position. Now raise the needed needles for the band. I will use only a few needles because this is just a test piece. Raise the same number of needles on the back bed and make sure the needle rule is observed. Set both locks to N and the stitch size to 3. Insert the orange strippers and take the main yarn. Now knit one row. Set both locks to CX and increase the stitch size to 4. Now knit 2 rows. Set both locks to N and increase the stitch size to 5. Knit one row to finish the cast on. Clear the row counter and set both locks to CX. Remove the orange strippers and insert the black ones. Rotate the racking handle anti-clockwise to its upper position and knit the first half of the band. I knitted 20 rows for the test piece. Now take a strand of the same color yarn. For the purpose of the video, I will use a contrasting color yarn. You need not more than 50 centimeters of yarn. On the front bed, raise 4 pushers where the buttonhole would be. We will only need them to mark the place of the buttonhole. Raise all the way the first needle to the right of the group of these 4 pushers. Use the yarn piece and knit off this stitch. Now knit off the first stitch for the buttonhole on the back bed. Transfer this stitch to the opposite needle on the front bed. Raise the needle all the way and knit off the stitches. Now take this stitch, transfer it to the next needle on the back bed and knit off the stitches. Continue the same way until you knit off the stitches on all 8 needles for the buttonhole. Transfer the last stitch to the needle on the back bed and knit off both stitches. When you are done, you must have 8 empty needles, 4 on the front and 4 on the back bed of the machine. Leave the empty needles in working position. Use the same yarn and lay it in a zigzag manner between the empty needles as shown in the video. You have to start with the first empty needle on the front bed. Finally, put the yarn in the 5th needle hook from left to right. At this point you can cut both yarn tails of the yarn piece short. If you want, you can put the tails between the beds and weave them in later, but you may tie them together as shown in the video. The knot will be small and it won't be visible at the end. This is only an option, so try it and see if you will like the final result. It may not work with the yarn that you are using. I made some knots and instead of cutting the yarn tails short, I will hide them in the knitting. Now you have to use the double-eye bodkin tool again and twist the yarn of all 8 needles. At the end of the video I will show you the final result with the contrasting color yarn as well as the test piece with the same color yarn. I'm sure that this will become your favorite way to knit buttonholes too. I invented it by myself. I tried to follow very unclear instructions and I had to improvise a lot to get to here. After you twist the yarn on the needles of the front bed, you have to twist the yarn on the needles of the back bed too. Now you can continue knitting tubular to make the second half of the band. I knitted 20 more rows. To take the band off the machine, use a contrasting color yarn and knit several rows with it. Then leave the eyelet in the color changer and move the lock to drop the knitting. This is the final result. I put the yarn tails inside the band so I can cut the excess now and the buttonhole is ready. It looks a bit odd with the contrasting color yarn, but now you can see what it would look like if you use the same color yarn. I hope you like it. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day and see you in my next video.